Hey everybody, Zach again at NewTutorial.com, coming and making a video for you today. It's been a really interesting week. So the past week I haven't done a lot of videos or anything really. My youngest son, 5 years old, Caleb, was in a bicycle accident. He was riding his bike here on the homestead and his spleen ruptured. And so, or actually it was destroyed in the accident. And so big drawn out process. I'm not going to go through the whole story here. If you want more information, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can go to an article that I wrote just describing the incident, what happened, and just kind of letting it all go play by play. So if you're interested, you can go check that out. Anyway, I guess the purpose of this video is my struggle during this time, and it was an absolute struggle. And I say in the article that I think one of the most devastating times for a parent is when they see their child's life actually in danger of being lost. And so that was kind of what took place here. And so it was really close, and it was very painful. So all that to say, I struggled with some things along the way. And I guess the point of doing this video, number one, is just kind of let people know what happened, and also to thank a lot of people. Thank so many people for their prayers and support and a lot of the emails that came through. I still have not gone through all the emails and messages that I know have come through. It's hard for me to get out there, and I got a lot of people asking me, hey, one guy even said they donated money through Messenger, and I don't even know how that works. And for the medical bills, and I'm like, I don't even know how that works. I never got a notice for that. So again, I'm going through all my messages. Thank you everyone who's supporting with your prayers and otherwise. Also thanks to the Woodson family and the Wells family. They were right there the entire time and giving me and Jamie support we needed, taking up the slack in areas we needed it, bringing food, going through considerable expense at helping us. So they were just terrific. And also the Vandevers, who I believe lived in Springfield. I hope I'm saying that name right. Who brought food for us on Shabbat at the hospital. That was great. So thank you very much for everyone involved. You have no idea what your prayers and support meant to us. Okay, so all that aside, the reason I'm doing this video is because I have, on a number of occasions, come across emails who come to me and say, Zach, there's been this terrific event or horrible event in our family, and I don't know how to explain this. I don't know how because I'm a believer. I consider myself a strong Christian or a strong Bible believer or strong in faith. And why are these things happening? This is kind of where I'm going. So this is something I struggle with. When we at the first hospital we took Caleb to, they decided to put him on a helicopter and transfer him to a level 1 trauma center elsewhere in the Ozarks that could handle his case because they didn't have anyone staffed there to do it. So they put Jamie and Caleb on the helicopter, and I had to drive the 2+ hours, 2.5 hours or so, to the next hospital where they were going. And that was the longest drive of my life. Now, I'm just trying to, I guess, admit my shortcomings here, because at this point, me and God had a serious discussion. And, obviously crying out to him in prayer, trying to lift up my son in prayer, and begging for the life of my son. So it was very painful. So because it was painful, part of the conversation kind of went like this, where are the blessings? If we are to be an obedient people and we're trying our best to be obedient, how come things like this happen to my family? How is this happening? And I get these questions in my email. Again, something horrible happened, this terrific event, and now I need clarification on what it means to be a believer, because right now I feel like God's abandoned me. And, so God corrected me on a lot of stuff during that drive, that 2-hour-long drive. And so, kind of put me in my place on some things. And it's the same thing I guess I would have to pass along to someone else who's going through a horrible event in their family. Why would God abandon me like this? Why would God, and he's not. It's funny because, the first thing that came to my mind is that, Zach, accidents happen. I give instructions on how to handle actually some accidents in Torah. It's Numbers 35. Numbers 35 talks about if a man accidentally kills another man. Now, this is, the nation of Israel, the people of Israel who are living in the land, who are supposed to be going by the commandments, and let's just say they're following all the rules of righteousness, and still accidents happen. They're still occurring, and the Father gives instructions on how to deal with these things when they do. Especially when it comes to something, where there's been a death and it's possibly been at the hands of another person, and it's been an accident. So these accidents still do happen. That verse that's taken out of context all the time, that usually comes into people's head in the book of Psalms. It says, "The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil; He shall preserve thy soul." And the prosperity teachers will cherry pick that verse and use it to try to sell you on the fact that because you're a believer, because you're invested in their ministry or invested in the kingdom, nothing bad's ever going to happen to you. The Father will always protect you. And if something does happen, well, it's just for the good of the kingdom anyway. So there you go. And that verse is very much cherry picked. It has not. That's not the context of that verse at all whatsoever. It's actually, in my opinion, in the context of the greater Exodus on a future time. If you go back through those verses, you read the verse, I believe it's verse 4, and also some of the other verses, it's talking about, having protection in the day and the night. Compare that with the book of Isaiah in chapter 4 and chapter 11. Anyway, to me, it's a greater Exodus chapter in the book of Psalms, chapter 121. So that verse is widely cherry-picked. And it's not about us. It's not about, nothing bad's ever going to happen, even though a lot of people try to sell you on that. There's this book I have over here. I've had it for a long time, and it's a great book. This has actually never been opened. I have another book that I read it the first time. I don't know what happened to it. I think I lent it out. But this one, it's a great book. It's called God Has a Wonderful Plan for Your Life. And it's got a picture on the cover of Stephen being stoned. In the book of Acts, where Stephen gets stoned, God has a wonderful plan for your life, right? But here's Stephen being stoned by his fellow countrymen, and so it's by Ray Comfort, obviously, and he makes the presentation. He presents the case that all these prosperity gospel teachers are selling you a bill of goods because it's all about your best life now, don't you know? And nothing bad's ever going to happen to you. You're always going to be secure. And you think about it, this is what happened to Stephen. Was he not a believer? Was he not strong in the faith? But yet he dies a horrible, painful death. It's the same with the people who died in the Roman Colosseum, the Christians. These were people who were of great faith. They were strong in their faith. They were adamant in their faith, and they died for it. I mean, can you imagine your death? What that would be like, being torn limb from limb by lions. But that's what these people went through. It's what they encountered. Dying by lions. So I just, what happened to their prosperity message, right? So, again, this was something I struggled with that entire 2-hour trip. And I think that the biggest thing was, number one, where are the blessings? How come why is this happening to me? And, there are no guarantees in life. Accidents do happen. Also, I was thinking back, I'm like, where's the other examples of people, losing their sons, in a manner like this? And obviously there's Job, and what did he say? The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so that obviously, but when you're in that middle of mind-numbed agony, that you forget all these things, and it's that conversation with the Father who reminds you about these things in Scripture, and they come to your mind. Abraham gave his son willingly when asked. He didn't debate about it. And it was right there in the vehicle where I said, okay, God, if you demand my son's life tonight, I give him willingly to you. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but if that's what you're asking, you have it. Because overall, it's not about me. This is the ultimate die to self. I have plans for my son. I have plans for, his future, and I want to see things for him, training him up in certain ways, and me and my wife are educating him in certain ways so that we're goal-oriented with his life. And all those plans just went down the crapper, and you have to be okay with that. because that's what die to self means. See, these are my ideas, or me and my wife's ideas. This is my will for his life, but that may not be the Father's will. And so that's dying to self. Again, a hard lesson, but one that was painfully needed in my life, because I had pridefully overstepped some bounds there of what I thought needed to be. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it with this. On Shabbat, I pray blessings over my sons. On most Shabbats, I pray blessings over my sons, and I ask the Father to protect them. So let me ask you this. Did God fail me here? Did God fail? Because this is the same thing that if something happens in your life and you're doing the same things that I'm doing, or you're keeping your kids in prayer, you're keeping your kids in prayer when it comes to their protection, their safety, who they're going to marry one day, all of these things, and then all of a sudden it's taken away from you, you're going to ask yourself the same questions. Did God fail me here? And the answer is no. In my case, I don't know what, in my case, my son was disobedient. We had told him numerous times, slow down on that bike. You're going too fast. Too fast. Stop. And he wasn't listening. Over and over and over again, we had to remind him to slow down and to stop going so fast on that bike. And one day he jumped out of the house, ran down, got on his bike. It had just got done raining. The ground was slick. The grass was slick, and he was doing zigzags on the lawn. And that's when the accident happened. And so you hear the kids out there playing. This is a result of his disobedience. And so another a pointed object lesson on blessings and curses for obedience. And so we're going to be able to use this as an object lesson for the rest of his life, saying, Caleb, remember that time when you disobeyed? The result of that disobedience? There were curses that came with that. Consequences that came with that. It's a good object lesson. I think this is the way I'm looking at it. He was warned by his parents to slow down, and it didn't happen. So, it ended up being okay. He's back home now. Obviously, he's moving really slow. He needs someone to hold his hand as he walks, and he needs help going to the bathroom and all these things. But he's recovering. Everything's well. You can, again, the article is below. You can read that and get all the details of how everything went down. So anyway, a lot of movement going on at the house right now, if you can hear that in the background. Anyway, I just wanted to do this video today because it's something I needed to just get off my chest. Obviously, thank a lot of people for the support and their prayers, and then just kind of go through this whole idea of what it means to, what it means when accidents like this happen, and it happens in every one of our lives. Every one of us is going to encounter these things, and how do we is this going to strengthen our faith, or is it going to weaken it? Are we going to give it up, or are we going to go full bore and be like, there's no way I'm ever going to stop the worship of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? No way. It was a really tough week last week, so, and I know you all get that. So that's where I'm coming. Blessings come from obedience. We'll just leave it at that. All right, go home, read your Bible. Thanks.